All right, today we're going to dive into something I think we can all relate to. We're unlocking those hidden patterns that seem to run our relationships and, honestly, our lives. We'll get into where they come from and, more importantly, how we can start building healthier ones.
So let me ask you this. Does this feel familiar? That nagging feeling that you're just replaying the same scenes over and over again? Having the same arguments, feeling the same exact frustrations no matter who the other person is? Look, it's a super common feeling, and the reason why might actually surprise you. The thing is, the roots of these patterns, they usually aren't about our recent choices. They're buried deep, deep in our past. They're connected to experiences from our earliest days, things we might not even consciously remember, but that have shaped the very foundation of how we connect with people.
So, to really get a handle on our present, we've got to look back. Our early life experiences create this sort of blueprint. It's like a template that unconsciously guides how we connect with others and just navigate the world as adults. The big idea behind this whole blueprint thing is a concept called attachment theory. A psychoanalyst named John Bowlby came up with it, and he suggested that the bond we form with our main caregiver in the first few months of life, well, it literally sets the stage for every important relationship we'll ever have. Think of it as our very first lesson in love, teaching us whether or not we can count on others to be there for us.
And this is really important to understand. This isn't always about big, obvious trauma. A parent could have been physically there, maybe even said, "I love you." But if they were emotionally distant or just unavailable, that chronic absence of a real, deep emotional connection can have a massive impact on a kid's developing attachment style.
Okay, so how does this blueprint actually, show up in our day-to-day lives? Well, it appears as distinct patterns, but here's the good news. Once we learn to recognize these patterns, we get the power to change them. So let's take a look at a few of the most common ones.
The source material really highlights three big ones. First up, there's denial. This is when we tell ourselves, "I'm fine," even when we are absolutely not fine. Then you've got low self-esteem, that little voice in your head that's always telling you you're not good enough. And finally, there's compliance, which is basically people-pleasing, where you just automatically put everyone else's needs ahead of your own to avoid conflict or rejection.
And just listen to what denial can actually sound like from the inside. I have difficulty identifying my feelings. I minimize, alter, or deny how I truly feel. See, it's not about just lying. It's a deeply ingrained habit of twisting your own reality to avoid feeling uncomfortable. And you often do it under the guise of being selfless.
This brings us to a huge one, telling the difference between healthy compromise and people-pleasing. Compromise is a two-way street, right? Both people's needs are on the table. But people-pleasing, that's a one-way street where you basically erase your own needs. And in the long run, that imbalance just leads to frustration and a whole lot of resentment.
All right, so we've looked at the blueprint, we've spotted the patterns. Now for the really good stuff. What can we actually do about it?
This brings us to our toolkit for building a healthier you.
The very first tool in our kit, and maybe the most important, is self-assertion. Now, this isn't about being aggressive or demanding. It's simply the skill of communicating what you need and how you feel, clearly and respectfully. I mean, you can't really expect a partner to meet needs you've never even told them about.
And self-assertion is what lets you set healthy boundaries. It's really a three-step process. First, you have to cultivate self-awareness. You got to know what you actually need. Second, you have to prioritize those needs. And third, you have to communicate them calmly and clearly, hopefully before you get all frustrated and resentful.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about our inner world for a second. What about that little critical voice in your head that fuels all that low self-esteem? Well, a really powerful way to think about it is as a mind bully. This bully is loud, it seems powerful, and it's just constantly shouting negative stuff at you. So picture this. You're in a tug-of-war with this bully over a giant pit. The more you pull, the more you struggle, the more power it has. But what if you just drop the rope? The bully would still be there, yelling its head off, but it would lose its power to pull you into that pit. You're not fighting the thoughts anymore, you're just disengaging. Look, this isn't about finding some magical quick fix. It's about starting a journey of healing and self-discovery and really understanding that the process itself is where all the growth happens. And it's so important to remember this. You don't have to change everything all at once. Real, lasting change isn't some giant leap. It's a series of small, consistent steps. So just pick one thing at a time and work on it. And most of all, be patient with yourself. So as you go on this journey, maybe keep these little reminders in your back pocket. Feeling discomfort is often a sign of growth. Remember that difficult feelings, just like the happy ones, are temporary. Worrying doesn't create change, but small actions do. And finally, you do not have to absorb the negativity of other people.
So, with all that said, let's end on a very simple question. This whole journey to building a healthier you, it starts with small acts of self-care and self-respect. It's not about big, grand gestures. It's about the daily practice of treating yourself with the kindness you deserve. So, what will your first step be?